Fred Richani of TSC. I'm sitting alongside one of the most respected people in pro football journalism. He's also one of the voices of All Elite Wrestling. We are talking to Alex Marvez right here on the set of his show on SiriusXM. Alex, how's your combine experience treating you?
It's treating me well because I got to see, AEW Dynamite last night, obviously, and that's obviously a thing near and dear to my heart. It's good. Fred, every year we come here, there's 337 young men chasing a dream here, right? They all want to be in the NFL. Not all of them are going to make it. But you get to meet some people, and there's some incredible stories. And that's the thing, I'm 48 years old now, and things that I used to take for granted, I don't in a lot of ways, and I look at things a little bit differently. And just the fact, some of these young people have overcome incredible tragedies. To get to where they are, just to even be alive maybe, or to even have gone to college, and to be able to now have a chance to take care of not only themselves but their families for generations to come. It's been really actually a very inspirational NFL scouting combine here. It's like my 25th. And I probably enjoyed this one more than any other just because the kids have been great. And what you see, too, it's not – when I first started coming here in the mid-'90s, not every player was equal. There were some that obviously had just majored in football, if you know what I mean. I think the academics and the media savvy of the young people here so improved through the years. And you end up meeting guys, and then you end up following throughout their careers. And that really begins in earnest here at the NFL Scouting Combine.
The social media age, and we now have TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Everything's video. So these guys are used to being on camera from the time they were kids.
And some of them just love it. And some of them take advantage of it. Listen, we had one player, Terrell Lewis of Alabama, who majored in marketing because he wants to market himself. It's a brilliant idea. And, who better to invest in than yourself, right? So I think there's that. I think they're more aware of the way things go. And listen, people consume news differently. I mean, that's been one of the big changes in like my world, for example, going from the newspaper world and realizing it's not a world that may be around forever. But I mean, even though we do have online publications, but how things have changed to where I'm full-time now at SiriusXM and also working with All Elite Wrestling. But the evolution changes of how the media is consumed, and we're with a generation that much better with video, much better with short amounts of video as well in terms of TikTok and things like that.
And believe it or not, while you are a decorated football journalist and broadcaster, I actually discovered your work reading a little publication called The Wrestling Observer, and it's pretty incredible to see your journey from being a writer with The Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer to now doing All Elite Wrestling while still covering the NFL. What came first for you in your life, your love for pro wrestling or your love for pro football?
My love of pro wrestling, and it's funny because I go back to late February of 1987, and my first Wrestling Observer of March 2nd, 1987, and this was right before WrestleMania 3, Andre the Giant against Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage against Ricky Steamboat, two of the most iconic matches in the history of pro wrestling. And I was going to a show I grew up in South Florida. I was going to a show at the Miami Beach Convention Center, and before we came in, I was talking, and the doors open. I was talking to a gentleman who said, and we're going over all sorts of stuff and how much I love Mid-South wrestling, all this. I'm just a diehard fan. And he goes, "There's this publication out in California I think that you might be interested in getting. It's called the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. Take the leap of faith. It was $6 for 4 issues. Send the $6 and see, and tell me what you think." And I did. And when I first got it and saw, oh my God, these are these guys' real names. Oh my God, this is what's going to happen in the future. Oh my God, this has already been taped for television. Brother, I was blown away, and it completely changed my life. I remember being 6 years old, watching with my dad on Championship Wrestling from Florida. My parents knew that if they wanted a happy me, make sure I'm in front of a TV set at noon Eastern time on a Saturday when Championship Wrestling from Florida was on. Otherwise, there would be a complete meltdown. And so, but then I started to become friends with Dave after reading The Observer and, started to branch out. And in 1989, I had the chance to write a wrestling column for the Miami Herald. It was a bi-weekly column. It became so popular, it became weekly. I kept it up through 2012. Really, my love of wrestling faded. I'm not a WWE person. I don't watch the product. I'm not a fan of Vince McMahon or his family and the way that they treat people. So that being said, I had gotten away from wrestling. But then, someone else who read me growing up, Tony Khan of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I met him at Jaguars training camp. And he said, yeah, we're talking football, but also I read you with wrestling. And so we just became really close friends through the years. And a couple years ago, the Colonel was planning in his mind of launching All Elite Wrestling. And I'm very fortunate to have been there every step of the way, just trying to help in whatever way I can. And I'll tell you what, it's been so enlightening too. I've never worked for an NFL team. I've always had interest in doing so because you find out what's on the other side of the curtain. I was a beat writer for a long time, and I still only felt I knew about 25-30% of what really went on. Well, when you work in a wrestling company, you understand why some things are done the way they're done, how some people really are, the personalities, et cetera. And I can just say this, the roster we've assembled, it's not just great wrestlers. They're great people. and they're interesting people. It's just been a true joy to just have involvement in this, and that's the only downside about being at the NFL Scouting Combine. I love my SiriusXM job. I'm not going to get fired for saying this, but I really do miss when I'm not around every Wednesday, the crew at All Elite Wrestling.
It's incredible. I mean, here we are a little over a year since AEW first officially formed. They got the Revolution pay-per-view coming up at the time we're doing this interview. They just got extended by TNT, got a big money offer. Congratulations on that. A lot of fans are watching. They have their pros, they have their cons. But what's one positive and tangible that the fans, observers, don't see on TV, something that makes the AEW stand out from all the rest?
What I think it is because it's an organic product. If someone has an idea, they can run with it. You know what I mean? There's a creativity there. People don't feel stifled, and it's a loyal company. Look, if you're not good at something, if something doesn't immediately resonate with the fans and they have to scrap it, they're going to give you another chance. I mean, when you look at, and again, I'm not a WWE watcher, but I read about the business through the Observer and other places. And look, reality is some people, they get one shot. Think about the WCW invasion back in the early 2000s. It didn't work, and all of a sudden, a whole group of talent gets buried over one bad idea. And then, and it wasn't even a bad idea; it was just bad execution. Not us. I mean, you're there for a reason. And that's what I think was so amazing about the roster that's been assembled. Everyone contributes something different. And I got to say this, too. I'm a longtime critic, right? I'm a media person. But when I watch AEW, because I like so many people there, I watch it through a fan's eyes, and I like everything. And it's a really healthy perspective, like not to hate watch. I know people, and I used to do it. You watch and you hate, right? I mean, you're going to sit there and you're going to go on social media and you're going to tweet everything negative, right? I mean, about a product, rather than truly just enjoy it. And like I've tried to watch it as a mainstream fan, and again, not everything is great. I admit that, but you know what? I'm entertained, and I just know that the people's hearts are in the right place there. I think that's what separates it, and it does have a very nice old school feel to it for the lapsed fan, if you will, that stopped watching once Vince McMahon and his family gained prominence with the wrestling company they have.
When it comes to media and covering football or pro wrestling, sometimes reality is indeed stranger than fiction. What's the wackiest, craziest story from football that you covered that you think would have been concocted by Vince McMahon or Tony Khan?
Well, gosh, I mean, with some things, I mean, it isn't funny, but I mean, you think about stuff like Aaron Hernandez, like how crazy that situation was, and you're like, what? You know, and some of the things that have gone on, I mean, deflated footballs, signal stealing, things like this, these ancillary things that you just think, is this really how it is? I mean, look, I covered Ricky Williams for a year, and I think I aged 10 in that time because, I mean, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Failed drug test, coming back into the NFL. I mean, that's a mini-series unto itself. Robert Edwards, you couldn't have scripted a comeback any better than this. Guy tears up his knee in 1998. One of the top rookie running backs in the NFL with the Patriots, gets hurt at the Pro Bowl playing beach volleyball. And he almost has to have his leg amputated. 3.5 years later, I'm covering him for the Miami Dolphins, and he's back. So things like that, I think, are just really interesting. And look, you get some really larger-than-life personalities too. I mean, both in football and in wrestling. But I think that's what makes it fun. And listen, the game again, it gets over-scrutinized, over-analyzed, and I understand there's only 16 games, soon to be 17. But so we blow those games up. But that's, I think, part of the fun of football, and also what's fun too, waiting for the next season to begin. By the time the preseason comes around, you're actually interested in watching the Hall of Fame game, and then you realize, wait, this is preseason football. I don't want to watch this. But it does. They do an incredible job building anticipation through events like the NFL Scouting Combine, through events like the NFL Draft, and all the minicamps.
I feel like you've had more job titles than the Young Bucks have had titles. How many job titles do you have nowadays?
I've narrowed it down. Just working at SiriusXM NFL Radio, working at All Elite Wrestling. I've worked in the past in the newspaper business, the Miami Herald, the defunct Rocky Mountain News, the South Florida Sun Sentinel. I worked at Fox Sports for a decade, and I worked at Sporting News. I mean, but the business continues to evolve, and it's just very interesting. I think it's like this in a lot of walks of life now with how much technology has come along that, the job that you start with is probably not going to be the job you finish. When I was growing up, Edwin Pope was at the Miami Herald as a columnist for, 40 some odd years. I mean, those days aren't going to happen. So you have to keep changing with the times, embrace new technology, don't be scared, and you should do okay.
What's the best piece of advice you give anybody that's hoping to get in your position?
Just work 24 hours a day. Work. I mean that. Just seriously, don't stop working. And you're going to get no. You can take it for an answer, but try something else. In all seriousness, if you're passionate about something, and try to spend as much time as you can around it, try to learn about it, look for ways to advance, and understand success doesn't come immediately, and listen. Big thing, keep your ears open. Listen, you don't have answers for everything if you're a young person. Trust me, I was there. I don't have answers now. Shutting up has been one of the best things I've done in my life, and learn from people that have been there and done that. That's one of the best pieces of advice I can give.
Wise words from a wise man. And where can fans find your show on SiriusXM and you online?
You can find me online on Twitter at Alex Marvez. You can find SiriusXM NFL Radio, usually working weeknights, 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Wednesday nights. Got a little thing called AEW Dynamite on TNT, 8 to 10 Eastern Time, working back behind the scenes there. We got some backstage interviews as well, and just having the time of my life.